Fight fans, warriors, I am Coach Sess, and you are listening to Words with a Mad Coach. In this particular breakdown, we're going to preview the matchup between Ryan Balintfy and Paris Artis coming up at Elite Warrior Challenge number 13, November 18th in Roanoke, Virginia. So as you can see here, Ryan is a big, strong guy. He's got a good squeeze, and he's probably going to favor getting the fight to the ground. Paris has to watch out for that. This is a guy who's fighting at 55, but he looks like he walks around at 85 or 90. So Paris is going to have to make sure that his combinations on the inside are very tight, very crisp, and very accurate in order to disrupt the mental flow of a big man like Ryan Balintfy. In Ryan's previous fight back in Sparta, where he picked up the interim 155 title, there's a couple of things there that let you know, one, that he can make the weight, and two, he fought relatively without any disruption. He didn't seem to suffer from the weight loss, and he was able to put the weight back on in a relatively safe and timely manner. But even in that fight, he was bigger than his opponent, and to a certain degree, a lot stronger. The one thing that I noticed in that fight, for such a big guy, he had very good output. And for the most part, holding true to his true form. He wanted to get the fight close, he wanted to get the fight down, and he wanted to work his ground and pound and submission skills. Ryan is 5-5 according to the record, and we don't see where there's substantial finishing power in terms of KO power. But you never can tell, because there's still boxing records out there, there's still Thai boxing records out there that just aren't loaded up on the internet on a regular basis, and when they are, they're usually not up to date. So Artis is going to have to watch out for the ability of Balintfy in terms of what his true power is, because again, he's a big guy. Artis has had experience fighting guys like Greg Walker, who fought at 55 and was Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, very strong in grappling, very physically intimidating upper body wise. And Artis even mentioned in that fight that he had a hard time escaping Walker's grips. Now that fight was a little bit different, because in that fight took place in a ring, so Artis didn't have the leverage to push off that he normally would have in a cage. But you still need to watch that with a guy the size of Balintfy, just because he's going to make up for that extra squeeze and that extra pump just with his sheer size. And this fight is taking place in Virginia, so I don't think there is a limit in terms of how much weight you can actually put back on. So again, Ryan could weigh in at 155 and come into the fight weighing 200. And again, Artis has faced guys who are a little bit bigger and a little bit stronger than him, but at the same time, they're the guys that tend to give him a little bit more of a problem. So this fight's definitely going to be about Artis keeping his distance, keeping his space, and being able to let his hands and strikes go. Again, you see here, Balintfy wants to scramble, get back to the ground game. Here he goes for a submission. Artis has fought Terrence Lennis. The fight was scheduled for 170, but I remember the day of the fight, I got a call from the promoter asking if Terrence could weigh in at 185. Just saying, hey, he couldn't lose any more weight. And I refused. I thought it was a ploy. It was just the day of the fight. I figured if he wasn't ready for 170, then we were going to take the fight. Paris was already doing a favor for the show by going up in weight, and so there was no need for him to take any more risk. The thing with this particular fight was Paris needed to actualize, equate the size difference by going to the clinch. I felt like Paris would have the outside striking advantage, but at the same time, this was a new weight class for him, so you didn't want to take any chances, because normally those opponents are a lot taller, a lot bigger. So we wanted to work the clinch instead of shooting in. We didn't want larger, bigger men on top of our heads in case you get sprawled out on. So that might be a strategy that we employ in this fight. Basically, any type of grappling that is done is going to be done close to the cage. Not going to be worried about a lot of shooting underneath, especially in Virginia because of the head kicks and the knees and elbows. So we want to try to, work out defensive measures and stay clear of any threats and danger. This fight, in my opinion, is going to be a fight based on the takedown. I don't know if Paris has the power to knock out a guy this size. He hasn't at this point. Most of the opponents that Paris has put the hands on have relatively been his size. So, these guys were, 50 true 55ers. They were either smaller guys coming up or they were true 55ers. The bigger guys like Linus and what's his name, Marcus Flood, these guys were actually somewhat slightly bigger and stronger than Artis in the upper body. So Artis didn't have the ability to KO these guys. Here you see Artis working a reinforced guillotine. That's the one thing that's probably common in this fight, that both guys are going to have good squeezes on the neck area. I haven't seen anything that said that triangles or upside down arm bars or flying omoplatas are going to be the nature of this fight. So here's Marcus Flood, and as you can see, Marcus is very strong upper body wise, and he was able to meet Paris in the middle of the ring, stand with him. He was also able to push him around a little bit against the cage, and as you can see, he's not even quite as big as Balintfy is, and he had that ability. So I think that just suits it up for us and just says, okay, we're not going to stand and bang with this bigger guy. As you can see, the side-to-side measurements, Marcus had slightly longer arms and just slightly taller and just slightly bigger guy. It just doesn't make sense. This was a guy that Artis did not knock out, so it doesn't make sense for him to try to come in and physically try to outmuscle a guy like Balintfy. The fights on Saturday night will be 5 3-minute rounds. So the trick here is that in Balintfy's last fight, it was 3 5-minute rounds, and he had the ability and the stamina to pretty much control that fight all the way through. Excuse me. So the trick here is for Artis not to get into a brawl and burn his energy with such a bigger guy who is going to get quite a few more rest periods. I did say this fight is going to come down to the takedown, and the good thing about that is Artis is in the gym against very good takedown guys, and that we've noticed that Balintfy himself, when he's taken down, when he's on the bottom, he's not exactly as dominant as he is when he's on top. So that is going to be a strategy. If it comes down to, if there's a need to actually take Balintfy down because he's overpowering Artis or whatever, and or maybe he's just outstriking him, we know that we want to put him on his back. just hasn't seemed to be as dominant when as he is when he's on top. It just seems to look for a way out, going for submissions outside of the guard, anything they can grab onto, and working his way back up, and he's probably going to be able to do that. Just such a big guy. Probably want to move him away from the cage, so he doesn't have that extra leverage to utilize, and pass the guard. And when we get there, try to do some damage. As you see here, it's going for Kimura in the half guard. Again, something that a bigger guy can just get away with, and that's kind of a tendency where you see bigger guys use moves like that because they can get away with it because of their size and strength. His opponent here is actually doing a good job, keep driving the pressure. I can't remember if his opponent was bigger than him or not, but he's doing a good job with the pressure. Aries is going to have to keep this fight standing, keep it moving, long distance tools, in and out quickness and sharpness. You see Aries using some of his favorite combos. We definitely want to make sure that we don't sleep on Balintfy's power. In this fight right here, I think he catches his opponent with just a stiff jab. And that says a lot about, his potential for knockouts, even though he doesn't have any on his MMA record. It does say a lot about his potential for power, just being such a bigger guy. And here you're going to see him set up a north-south choke. Once again, just showing you that big man squeeze. And also reinforcing the idea that he does want to get this fight to the ground. Even though he's coming from his current gym is the House of Muay Thai, this is a guy who wants to submit people, obviously. And he's done it a few times in his fights. Wow. The one thing that I have noticed is that in this fight right here, he did charge a bigger man. Now he's probably done with this habit because this was early on in his career, but he was able to go in and just start brawling with a bigger guy. And to me, this was a mistake because the in and out interactions with such a bigger guy forced him to run into a head kick. Here it is. Bam. And this is something that he's going to have to watch out for against Aries, because one of Aries' favorite techniques just happens to be the head kick. Watch this setup. Oh my God, indeed. Fun night. Okay, so that's my breakdown, and you've had words with a mad coach.